Okay, so in the previous video, I went over our tempos with trills and also smoothing out the trills and the types of trills um, that different composers use. So, in this video, I'll be going over phrasing and dynamics. So, starting off, phrasing is basically when you either most likely you would slow down. You wouldn't be exactly on beat or on tempo, I should say. Um, so the example might be most of the time musicians would slow down. It's very rare when you would speed up. So in order to use phrasing with trills, of course, you have to place out where you want to phrase. So meaning, would you like to phrase before the trill or after the trill? In the little part that I just played, I started phrasing before the trill. Usually musicians would start phrasing before the trill so that it sounds even. The next topic that I will be discussing in this video would be dynamics, which is a topic that most people have problems with because they either want to play on one dynamic instead of changing throughout the song. So, dynamics is basically like either if you're fast or slow. And slow, I mean, loud or soft. So soft would be piano and loud would be forte. So if I wanted to play piano, then I would do this. Light and soft. If I wanted to play forte, then I would play like this. That was loud and powerful. So usually when you're adding dynamics along with your along with your trills, usually you would play the trill the same dynamic that you play the rest of that measure or line, or you would change a dynamic for like either make it loud or soft. So if I were to change the dynamic for the trill, it would sound like this. I made the trill softer than the actual line that I played. If I were to make it louder, it would sound like this. Usually musicians would make it sound softer than the actual line or measure. So, if I were to add phrasing in an actual piece, or let's take Chopin's Minute Waltz. In his waltz, I would make the phrasing slower. And if I were to take the Chinese dance, usually it depends on the musician. I would make it, I guess, slower. just played, you can barely tell I phrased, but I played the trill a bit slower than the line that I played. If I were to use dynamics in a Chinese dance, it would make more sense than to phrase. So I'm going to play the first line loud. So I made the trill softer than the line before and after the trill. Usually musicians would make it the same dynamic as the whole line, but I can add a dynamic in Chopin's Minute Waltz, which would of course make sense. In that in those few lines, or the first page, I guess, I had added phrasing and dynamics, which made the piece sound beautiful because it's Chopin. You really want to do that for at least the Chinese dance.